Hey, welcome back to another video. This time we're talking Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, so soon after the last one, I know. But I have been getting into it quite a lot again recently, and a large part of that has been because of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, which launched very suddenly the other day. We knew it was coming out Q1 2022, but Konami didn't give us a specific release date, and we're basically just like, here's Master Duel at like 2:30 in the morning. And I figured it's been a couple of days, we had some time to play around with it. I have spent, frankly, a large amount of time in the game already. I think I could probably say in general that it's quite good. And if I may be so bold, I think it is the perfect Yu-Gi-Oh! Game currently, officially anyway, for both old players and especially new players. And for new players, it may just out and out be the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Game. So to start with, if you are not aware of what Master Duel is, it is basically an officially licensed or an officially produced online Yu-Gi-Oh! Simulator to sort of contrast with the bevy of unofficial ones that have existed forever. And it's coming kind of late because Magic has already had its online version for a while, Pokemon has had one, but this is the first really big push for a fully recreated, just like the TCG simulator. And if you're seeing the footage right now, it looks very similar to Hearthstone. A lot of these online, like officially made online simulators are sort of borrowed visually from Hearthstone with the animations and the fields and all that. I'm fine with that because it looks very, very nice. Master Duel is a very pretty game. And Master Duel's goal is to, obviously, simulate the real game for those that maybe don't have a big scene in their area, like I don't really, or since we're still in the middle of the pandemic, if you do have a big scene, you can't really go anywhere, or even if you just don't have the money to spend on the card game, because frankly, the physical card game can be very much an investment. An online simulator like this is very attractive, and it's kind of amazing that it took a long time for Konami to make one of this quality. Now, like I said, just right at the top, I think Master Duel is a great game. But why do I think that? Well, as kind of a returning player, but as somebody who hasn't really actively played the game since probably about the 5Ds era, it's just, first of all, a very good way to get right into it and sort of brush up on some of the newer mechanics like link monsters and pendulums and whatnot. I got out of the game right around the time Xyz were introduced, not really for any particular reason, that was just when I stopped playing. And when I got sort of back into it a couple of years ago, pendulums and link monsters were pretty new to me and I didn't really know what was going on. And Master Duel has a very, very good tutorial where it explains first the basics of the card game. So if you've never played the game before at all, it will teach you in general how to play it, the very basic rules. You might still need to do digging around for some of the other specifics, but the very basic rules are given to you right off the bat and explained very concisely. And there are deeper tutorials that explain every summoning mechanic, except for fusion monsters for some reason. I guess fusion monsters are pretty simple. They are like the oldest extra deck mechanic in the game, but it feels a little strange that there's not a dedicated fusion monster tutorial. You have the regular one that teaches you how to play the game, and you have a synchro monster one in that same one, and then the individual ones are for Xyz, Pendulum, and Link, but there isn't one specifically for fusion monsters. This isn't an extra deck type, but there is sort of a tutorial for ritual monsters, but we'll talk about that later. So the tutorials make it incredibly good for brand new players. If you've never played Yu-Gi-Oh! Before, or maybe you're like me and you used to play it but have been out of it for a while and all these new mechanics are really confusing to you, the tutorials will help you very much get a grasp on those. The tutorial, it'll teach you the general mechanics and brush you up on the new stuff if you've been out of it for a while. And if you have been playing the game consistently and still play it regularly, then you can skip the tutorials and still get the rewards the game gives you, because obviously you won't need the tutorials, you know how to play the game, but you still will get the things that the game rewards you for doing. Something that very much worried me when Master Duel was announced was that obviously you would not have all the cards unlocked to begin with. You would need to unlock the cards. And with how pay-to-win something like Duel Links is generally perceived as, I can't really say for sure if that is the case, I don't play Duel Links, and the way that a lot of Konami's methods have been for a while, I was very worried about how they might end up doing this, but I can say just so far that it's actually quite generous with free-to-play players. I have not spent a dime on this game, literally zero money I have spent on Master Duel, and I have 2 full decks and so many other cards, because the game is very, very generous with the in-game currency, at least early on at this current point in time. The game basically spits gems that you can use to buy packs in the store. Plus, you can get more gems through missions, and there are so many missions. I do worry about the acquisition of gems getting harder down the line. Fire Emblem Heroes kind of had the same thing happen in its really early days, where once you got a lot of the orbs from the story mode, it was kind of hard to get orbs naturally after that, but that's not really a thing with Fire Emblem Heroes anymore. And so I imagine that can definitely change with Master Duel down the line. And something else that I think is just worth mentioning, through the if you buy cards in bulk through the shop with the gems the game gives you, you have a pretty high chance of getting some decently rare stuff. And if it's stuff that you don't really need, you can destroy it for materials to craft cards, because just so that you don't have to hope against hope that you'll get one particular card that you need, the game does allow you to generate most of the cards that are available. There are a handful that you cannot generate, stuff that's on the banned list you can't create or even obtain in any way, and there are a handful of like select cards that you need to just obtain through regular means, usually through a structure deck or through a solo mode thing. We'll talk about solo mode in a second. But you will get so many cards, you'll get such a taste of everything just from a handful of pulls that you'll do. I would personally recommend these special bundles in the store that give you one decent staple card as well, or one pretty good staple card, as well as a whole bunch of master packs. You will get a very wide variety of cards, and in those you will almost certainly find something that you like and that you want to build, and you can then destroy, or dismantle as the game calls it, cards that you don't really need to gain the resources to build the rest of that deck. It is what I did to build my Traptrix and my Frightfur decks. But of course, the main draw of the game is the dueling, and the dueling is super good. Visually, like I said, it looks great, the animations are smooth, and even if you don't like them, you can turn them off. The music is fantastic, and the interface is really clean, although occasionally I have had problems with doing a thing I didn't intend to do. There have been twice that I have flipped a monster into defense position when I meant to go to attack mode, or when I went to go attack because it wasn't in the battle phase yet, but that's really probably more on me than anything. And there are multiple methods of dueling. The game really, really wants you to do online matches, and there are currently only friend matches and ranked. I really wish there was a casual mode, especially to test out any new decks that you have. Granted, you can do that in, again, unofficial simulators or against your friends, but I think it would still be nice to have a casual mode for if you just kind of want to test a deck or play just some lower stakes duels. But the thing that I was really excited about when it came to the dueling for this game is the solo mode. The solo mode contains various scenarios focused around particular archetypes, and specifically, you'll know that I really like this based on the last Yu-Gi-Oh video, they have little scenarios and stories revolving around the lore of the archetypes that you are playing. And that is really, really cool. They all have just little small snippets. I kind of wish the stories were longer, personally. And not like the actual campaigns were longer. I wish the story bits there were more of them and they were more meaty. But I do like what is there. It gives a really good taste, and maybe they will improve upon it in the future. Hopefully they will even add more of these, because there are other archetypes with some really good lore. Konami, where is my worm solo mode? And within those solo modes is another thing that I think really, really helps new players, or even just returning players who want some variety or know what decks to play. The solo modes, like I said, have you play specific archetypes, and they will teach you the basics of that deck. Some are better than others. The Megalith one is basically just Megalith's Ritual Summon, and they really probably could have done a little bit more, because they have another ritual deck. The Demise storyline effectively serves as the tutorial for Ritual Summoning. I kind of feel like it should have its own thing in the tutorial section, but it will teach you the basics of Ritual Summoning to an extent, and these are all really, really cool. Some of the choices for what archetypes they went with are strange. It's kind of odd they didn't do like a Dark Magician or a Blue Eyes White Dragon one, just because those are the iconic ones that would definitely get people's interests. But I like that they picked some weirder ones like Demise or Digital Bugs, frickin' Gem Knights, all kinds of bizarre choices for it, and I dig it. I think the story modes are very, very fun. Plus, you get good rewards out of it, and so they're worth doing. Now, the one thing that has been sort of a sticking point for a lot of people that I've noticed is that Master Duel has its own ban list. It is not the same one as the TCG. I'm not certain if it's exactly the same as the OCG one, but it apparently is based pretty heavily off of the Japanese OCG's ban list. I imagine in the future we will have separate TCG and OCG ban lists, but currently it has its own ban list, and things are weird about it. Now, just a couple of other, like, small things about Master Duel that I really like. When you're building a deck, when I started building decks in this, I was, like, leaving gaps because it was like, oh, well, I don't have this card, or I don't have enough of these cards. But as it turns out, you don't need to do that. You can add a card to your deck even if you don't have it. You obviously won't be able to play the deck because you don't have that card, but it will be there so that you can keep track of what specifically you need for that deck all the time. And if you happen to pull that card from the pack while the blank space basically is already there, then it will be added to the deck. And that is so convenient and so cool. There are some minor things about the deck builder that could probably be fixed. Searching is a little awkward. I wish you could filter by archetype to specifically give only cards that support a particular archetype, because let's use Worms as an example again. If I search for Worm, I will get every card that has Worm in its name or mentions Worm in some way, even stuff that doesn't support the Worm archetype. And I really wish you could search by specific archetype so that it would just give you cards that support specifically reptile type worms instead of like the Wicked Worm Beast. This is one that I think newer players will especially appreciate, or even just people like me that are very forgetful. One of the hard parts about playing an actual physical card game is you have to remember what cards you have and the effects that go off and when they go off and how to trigger them and when to trigger them, basically. But Master Duel, like many of the duel simulators that have existed prior to it, will basically alert you when a card you have is ready to be activated and if you want to activate it. And that is very, very helpful. I have been like sort of actively playing the game again for only a handful of days, really. But even when I was sort of trying to get back into it a year ago and playing on unofficial simulators, I could just regularly forget stuff, and that thing where the game keeps track of it for you to help out is very, very useful. And it'll definitely help with brand new players who are still kind of getting a grasp on what their effects do and how to activate them overall. I've been kind of lucky in that I've been able to create, the two decks that I've been able to create are decks that I already played and more or less know how they work anyway. But if you're new to the game and you pick a deck because you think it looks really cool, you're not really going to immediately know the effects off the top of your head. And so just having the game tell you, you can activate this trap card now, the conditions have been fulfilled, is very, very helpful. So that is largely all I have to say about Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. I think it is a very, very good game, and if you are a new player who wants to get into the game but finds it really confusing looking at it, this is a great way to go down. Like I said, it will teach you the very basics, it'll help you keep track of card effects, it'll help you learn, figure out new archetypes to play, it'll do everything. You still will need to look into the rules and learn some things yourself, but the basics and the gist of the game will be taught to you very, very well. And if you are a returning player, or if you've been playing regularly, I think it is still worth playing. It shouldn't be taken quite as seriously as something like one of the offline simulators that just lets you have or online simulators from like the unofficial ones that just lets you have every card, because then you can build any deck with the only restrictions being the ban list, and sometimes not even that depending on the rule set you use. But Master Duel is kind of its own thing, and I think it is very fun to play still, even for older players. I have two friends who are very much older players of Yu-Gi-Oh! And they are greatly enjoying this game. But it is a fun game. It's definitely needs some improvements. But overall, I think it is a very solid product, much better than I was expecting it to be, especially on the monetization aspect. Buying gems doesn't really seem like a great deal, but in terms of giving you the materials that you need so you don't need to buy gems, it is pretty good at it right now. That might change in the future. Any of the things that I'm saying could change in the future. There's also a handful of bugs that are in the game that Konami is at least aware of, apparently, and working to fix. Like, you can't really spectate at all active duels that are going on. It just plain doesn't work for some reason. But the flaws can be ironed out. I imagine a lot of them will be, and in maybe even a few months to maximum a year, we'll probably be looking at a completely different game with many more features, and I will probably end up doing another video on Master Duel at some point when a lot of those have been addressed. But for now, I would say that Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel is the perfect video game to perfect Yu-Gi-Oh video game for beginners, and it is a great video game, probably at least the best official Yu-Gi-Oh game for returning players, because it features probably the best just straight up recreation of the card game, because it has every card. If you've played Master Duel, let me know what you think. If you haven't played Master Duel or you're a new player, tell me if you think it'll get you into it in the comments below. Drive up audience engagement a little bit. That is all for now, and I will see you guys next time.